The challenge is twofold. One is their brains are so wedded to rushing towards coming up with that idea in the moment that they can put into their business course, that I am really struggling to show them that there's a better way of doing it. So that's number one. Number two, the course design is starting already at that place we might call develop. It's going, hey, just come up with an idea and now venture that idea and turn that idea into a business. Morena. Good morning. Hello, kia ora. Wherever this finds you in the world, this is our first post of 2024. I've got my morning coffee, so let's see what's going on, what's worth updating you on. We've had a fantastic, it's February already, end of February, 2 months gone by. After a year of rain last year, we've had an absolutely phenomenal summer, which continues to give La Nina summer, which is dry, surf's good, water's really warm, and really warm sunny days. So haven't really wanted to sit down and do some of this, but back to it we will, and I am back to it. So, the job of an innovator is varied and supporting different people in different ways. I'm helping a phenomenal entrepreneur who started out in the skincare beauty industry. She had some skin issues and she couldn't find the right stuff. Long story short, she ended up boiling up and making her own recipes on the stove top at home. And long story short, now 5 years later, I think it is, she's now in 80 clinics around the country. So I've been helping her. I'm back in global music, so there's a bit to tell you about that over the coming year. Working up out of London on some artists again, which is fantastic. Really enjoy that work. It's going to be groundbreaking, actually. So there's that going on. And I'm back in schools. So BIF Kids is going to continue this year. Maddox for teens is going to continue this year. But what we are doing is BIF 101 for young innovators. So that speaks to young people in either their first or second job, or what we're trying to do is catch people at the end of college, at the end of high school, so year 13 at the moment. And I'm doing a pilot with a school and wanted to come and share some of those learnings because I don't find it easy. It's not an easy thing to do. The difference between doing a masterclass with an adult group of owner-operators who are running their own business and talking to them about innovation, the difference between talking to them in the context and the need for creativity, for ideas, not so much that they're creating the new products, but around service, around value, around identifying who their customers are, who else could their customers be, or as we say, fans. There's that work in the adult context, and when we're trying to pull that back and give it the knowledge, the experience, the tools, the skills, the processes, the behaviors to a younger audience and develop them into that capacity so we don't have to catch them at 30, 35 and give it back to them. I find it's really challenging work, and it's really challenging work for this reason. To talk to you about that, I need to give you a bit of context. So when I started in innovation, you identify this paradigm, I guess it is, that in the absence of any other knowledge, most humans rush to the first solution they have. We call it rushing to solutions. And what I mean is the mental rush that when you hear a problem or are presented with a challenge, in the absence of knowing any different, your brain rushes to the first solution it can come up with. And you think it's pretty good, and there's you off running with it and starting, trying to make that happen. Now, in the world of everyday problem solving, where are the keys, how do I get out the door, driving to work, commuting, whatever it happens to be, that's a fantastic system because it's instant problem solving. We get over the hurdle fast and we move on. It's almost an unconscious process. When it comes to innovation, the creation of new value and then making new value happen, that system works against us. And here's an example of exactly why that works against us as relates to these young people. So I've connected with year 13, as I said. These young students at school in their final year at school, and most of them are thinking about university or tertiary education in some way. But as an experience towards that, they are this year taking a business course, doing business and or doing accounting, and some of them are doing both. And so I've connected with them, and it's a fantastic program, because what the program they're going through is to imagine that they're going to venture a new idea. So they're in teams, small tight teams, 5-6 people. Each people has a role. They're all C-suite executives. What's brilliant is that their challenge for the year is to come up with an idea that they could turn into a business, and then venture and see if they can't launch that idea over the course of the year to hit 4 pillars. The pillars are environmental, economic, some sort of profitable, social impact, and cultural impact. That's the thing I want to speak about. They've got this program, they've got to come up with an idea. And so I'm in there talking about innovation. And innovation when I first came to innovation, it's the same paradigm. What I noticed was a lot of clients and brand teams and product teams in that old school brainstorming approach were faced with a challenge of working to 2 steps, a process that involved 2 steps. 1, get in the room and have some ideas, and then 2, some poor person had to take those, whatever those ideas were, mostly rubbish, take it away and make something of them. So that's a 2-step process. Get in the room and have an idea. Someone has to launch the best of whatever you came up with. We could talk for hours about why that doesn't work, but as it relates to these young kids at school, they see the program, they're in week 2 or 3 of the program, and what I've noticed when they're with me is they're just trying, when I first met them, what they're trying to do is jump to an idea, and already I've heard the same team jump around 4 or 5 possible ideas, because what their brains are trying to do, and this is what adult brains really fail at, is jump to the solution of what the idea could be, and then they're going to turn that idea that they've just jumped to into some kind of venture, into some kind of business, into some kind of new enterprise. It's just not going to happen that way, is it? There's no way that can happen. And so what I've started to do with them is go, no, the first idea we need to explore is the idea of a brief, is the idea of what is the domain that you want to work on that speaks to your passion, your interest, something that starts to hit those 4 pillars, that from which you might be able to craft a brief and then do some insight work, and then from that insight work you might be able to inspire a new idea that fits what you're working on. So I'm trying to get them out of rushing to literally within minutes. They're just trying to come up with an intuitive idea that could become a new business, jumping around from mowing lawns to recycling tires into phone covers to air fresheners in cars, etc. There's just jumping around all these different ideas. What I've found really hard to do is lift them back from that rush towards just having an idea that they can put into their business program and going, what you're literally trying to do is invent the new business right now and then somehow make it happen. Innovation is 2 parts. It's both creating a better idea, the best possible idea you can come up with, and then modeling it and developing it and taking it to market and launching it, etc. 2 parts. So what they're trying to do is rush within a couple of minutes the first part and then spend the rest of the year working out the second part. I tried to get them to see, and I'm trying to get them to see, that the first idea you can have, so using what their brains want to do, just have ideas. The first idea you can have is to start with the brief. So I've been introducing them to the BIF 6 steps, talking about them as being linear, as the rules of innovation. Once you know the rules, you can break the rules, so we can get to that later. But these 6 steps, they describe exactly how you should approach the solving of this challenge. 1, articulate the brief. That articulation of the brief of what you're trying to do. We're trying to come up with an idea that we can venture this year, and we're really interested in the domain of X, of sustainable recycling, of transport, of fragrance, etc. The domain, the broad market category that they want to be in. That would then set up some insights, some assumptions. They've got to go and check and get market intelligence, check their assumptions about what they think is going on in the world. Who are the current customers? Who's currently in this market? How does it work? How does it operate? What are the models in there? Direct to consumer, online, in shops, whatever that looks like, get the market intelligence. And then when you start to explore that, you'll start to notice some spaces or some things that people aren't doing well, etc. That gives you insight to inspire new possible ideas. once you have those first thoughts and ideas about where you could be, what you might do, the product you might have, the brand, the proposition, where you might play, etc., you still don't know if it's any good. You could then put that to the test. So suddenly you're now into an innovation process where you're testing out your thinking, testing out your ideas, and that gives you more insight where you can start to develop your best idea, right? Weeks, months of work. Start to develop your best proposition, your best idea, model it, and then think about developing a way to take it to market so that you can launch it. Now here's the challenge around that. So that's all good in process, etc. That's all good in a way, in a process that they could embrace and take on and use. The challenge is twofold. One is their brains are so wedded to rushing towards coming up with that idea in the moment that they can put into their business course, that I am really struggling to show them that there's a better way of doing it. So that's number one. Number two, the course design is starting already at that place we might call develop. It's going, hey, just come up with an idea and now venture that idea and turn that idea into a business. And most of the ideas they are coming up with, obviously, are a bit shit. They're not well thought through. They're those first ideas we could have. And that's the nature of what happens when you rush to the first assumed solution you can come up with. They're not very good. They're very thin. They're not thick. They're very shallow. They're not deep. They've got no insight. They're just based on an intuitive leap in the absence of any real knowledge or insight, and in the absence of knowing the way the brain wants to work, the way the creative brain wants to work, and exactly how we come up with thicker, more robust, more insightful ideas that have so much contained within the DNA of the idea that there are reasons that it will eventually stick with eventual audiences and solve problems in delightful, compelling, commercial ways. So that's what we're working on at the moment. We're delivering BIF 101. With the manual, we are taking them through part one, which is just introducing to the 6 steps. Because the other side of this is, there's 2 parts to this in terms of innovation. And what I'm trying to answer with them and understand is, do we start with the process? Do we start with 6 steps and go, here's the narrated steps of how you approach problem solving? Or do we start with creativity and actually start to show them why their brains are rushing to these assumed solutions, start to unpack that and get into a bit of creative brain science and show them how it works? I'll update you on that, because last Monday, I tried something where I actually went, well, come on then, let's talk to, because at the moment we're deep in process and I'm taking them through those steps and we're just trying to get them to go from ideas back to brief, and let's start there. And then I realized it wasn't really working for them, and trying to overcome that rush, I went, okay, let me try and get into the neuroscience of creativity. And that didn't really work either. And I'm still trying to dig into and explore and think about and talk to the teacher and understand what part of that isn't working either. Because what they really struggled with when I started to ask them questions about, well, when are you creative? When do you feel creative? When do you feel inspired? When does it feel like your brain is really open to the new and you're being curious and you are having thoughts and ideas about possibilities? Might be nothing to do with the business course you're currently on. It might be about yourself. It could be about what you want to go and do in the world, or who you want to become, or things you'd love to go and do, or places you'd love to go and visit, or the sports you're playing and how you might improve your performance in those sports. All of that kind of creativity and possibility and ideas and potential. When I started to ask them about that, they found it really hard to respond. And I'm not entirely sure why. So anyway, that's a long way of talking about where we're at. So for BIF this year, what it's shaping up like is we're going to be continually doing this work of nurturing next generations into their creative capacity. So not just these year 13 students, we're going to be doing Maddox, our young team program. We're going to be doing BIF kids, our real beautiful love of these young primary school kids and nurturing them into their idea superpowers. And then we've still got teams going through the BIF People program and the fandom work with music. So, we're still supporting the broad portfolio of what we're doing. And as ever, we invite you to follow, to come on in, to get into our online, betterideasfaster.com, ton of resources in there, free masterclasses, etc., etc. So, there's challenges everywhere. If ever there was a time for our individual capacities for creative thought and ideas, and learning to collaborate those with each other to help make the best of those happen on whatever we're facing in the world, now is the time, this year is the time, and as ever, Uni and I are absolutely committed to progressing this work. So please come with us, lean in, follow, grab what you can for free. If there's stuff there you love, please purchase it, let us know, give us feedback, and yeah, we're going to keep going. Aroha nui, we'll see you next week.